lifetime or significant accomplishments and achievements that have made a lasting impact upon the Libertarian Party and the Libertarian movement. Nominees must receive a unanimous vote by the awards committee to qualify for induction. The committee can elect at most 3 people for each national convention. As you may recall, Ed Clark, John Hospers, Roger McBride, Tony Nathan, and David Nolan were inducted into the Hall in 2012. The first inductee of 2014 is Harry Browne.
This is a posthumous induction.
Among his many accomplishments are the several books he authored, including How I Found Freedom in an Unfree World, Why Government Doesn't Work, and The Great Libertarian Offer, as well as his service to the Libertarian Party as our presidential candidate in 1996 and 2000. He passed away in March of 2006.
Downstairs in the breakout rooms, you can actually tap into the free internet at the convention center. It doesn't extend over here. At least it doesn't on mine.
Yeah.
It's actually just called free internet.
Oh, really?
I'm Harry Browne, Libertarian candidate for president.
So, tell us, why are you running for president?
Well, it's obvious that no Democrat or Republican is going to stop the relentless growth of government. No one but a libertarian is going to reduce government to its constitutional limits, reduce your taxes dramatically, enable you to live as a free American. But
one of the problems with government is that the people who are making all the decisions are making decisions with your money, not with their money. So naturally, they feel no sense of responsibility as we know it, because not one of them will suffer no matter how many people die as a result of the bill that they pass.
if I'm elected president, on my first day in office, I will give an unconditional pardon to every federal prisoner who was convicted of a nonviolent drug offense. I will empty the federal prison violent thugs who are terrorizing our streets.
As a matter of fact, whenever you try to impose morality by government, what you wind up doing is making moral decisions the province of politicians. I don't know about you, but I do not consider Newt Gingrich, Jesse Helms, Teddy Kennedy, Richard Gephardt, Bob Dole, Bill Clinton as my moral superiors. And people can teach me something about it.
The problem is not the abuse of power, it's the power to abuse. If government is big and government can reward its friends and punish its enemies, then everybody's going to be showering money on it, trying to get on the good side of government rather than the bad side. But if government doesn't have that power, if the politicians can't do anything to tamper with your life, then people are going to be uninterested in slipping money under the table to politicians.
And at the top of your website, you have, I want you to be free. What do you mean by that? I mean, that's one of those big phrases that hardly anybody could be opposed to. But what does it mean to you?
Well, it's interesting. You're absolutely right. Hardly anybody could be opposed to it, and yet no Republican or Democrat is offering it to you. I want you to be free to live your life as you want to live it, not as Al Gore or George Bush thinks is best for you. I want you to be free to raise your children by your values, not the values of bureaucrats who are trying to create a brave new world. I think every dollar you earn should be yours to spend, to save, to give away as you see fit.
I swear to you, if the Libertarians take power, if I am elected president, we will restore the country that our founding fathers had in mind, and then we will go to work from there to decide how to make it even freer yet.
Carla Howell, the political director of the Libertarian Party, will accept the award on behalf of the Browne family.
describe the man, Harry Browne, who brought me into the Libertarian Party, thousands of other people into this party, many of us still around, and who grew the party tremendously while he was president, running for president, should have been president. His widow, Pamela Browne, will be very, very touched by this, and I look forward to seeing her reaction to it. Just a few words. The man, amongst his many qualities, charming, respectful, talented, a great writer, he could reach beyond the choir. He could reach non-libertarians, and he enrolled them in the idea of freedom. He was just a tremendous man. Here's to Harry Browne.
Bill Redpath will present the next inductee.
When people pass on, they say at their funeral, I don't know how we'll get along without him or her. But when they say it at this man's wake, it'll be the God's honest truth. I don't know what I would do day in and day out in pursuing ballot access without knowing Richard Winger is there for me. Knowledge, always positive, always upbeat, an invaluable person. Other than my parents and possibly my spouses, possibly. He is the most important person in the entire history of my life. He's influenced me, made it so clear how important ballot access is for our movement, not just for us, but for other minor parties, to work toward a more open political system. Every third party in the United States ought to give this man the award he's about to receive here. I remember, there's one moment, though, that stands out. I do expert witness work. I do business valuation work as a profession. I do expert witness work in civil litigations. As part of that, I go to court, get deposed. I've been deposed many times in civil litigations, but there is one moment that stands out. It has to do with the deposition that I was involved with Richard Winger. We were suing the state of West Virginia, one of the many times we sued the state of West Virginia over the ballot access law. And there was a deposition in Morgantown, the county courthouse in Morgantown. This was back when Carl Hess was still alive, so it's over 20 years ago. And Carl had been deposed by telephone. He wasn't in good health. He'd been deposed by telephone in the morning. Then I was deposed, and then Richard Winger was deposed. And I saw something that I'd never seen an attorney do in any deposition anywhere to react like this. This guy was bringing up certain points with Richard about West Virginia ballot access law, and it's really not so bad versus this state or that state. But Richard knew that he's well in that state. In Oklahoma, you can file as an independent and run without a petition. In this state, carved out all the exceptions to this man, where he could turn back every parry this guy made, implying that West Virginia ballot access law wasn't so bad. And after about 5 of these instances, just boom, 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 the man from the Attorney General's office, the attorney from the West Virginia Attorney General's office is sitting there, and all of a sudden he goes, I see this look on his face, and he goes, oh. He goes, wow. You sure do know your ballot access law. So with that, we now have a video about Richard Winger.
Ballot Access News is a 25-year-old print publication that covers changes in the law that affect political parties and independent candidates. The ballot access laws are constantly changing. Every odd year, half the states have bills in their legislature to change the ballot access laws. Every year there are about 20 lawsuits filed over the ballot access laws, so there's a lot to cover.
What issues do you expect the third-party candidates to cover which Obama and Romney didn't address during their debates?
Certainly, they never talked about marijuana decriminalization. They said very, very little about immigration policy, and they didn't say very much about poverty. And of course, even for the issues that they did talk about, they tended to agree with each other, and you can count on the fact that tonight's debate for the minor party presidential candidates, you'll hear very different views, especially about foreign policy.
It just doesn't occur to people in most countries that it's legitimate for two parties to get together and keep their competition off the ballot.
And for those parties who try to keep the competition, third parties, independents, what have you, off ballots, what's their main reasoning?
Oh, the reasoning is, well, it depends on whether they're talking honestly or dishonestly. If you want an example of an honest comment, I was at a Georgia state legislative hearing once, and the legislator on the elections committee said, "I don't want no damn libertarian running against me." There's a new threat to minor parties and independent candidates. It's in the movement for a so-called top two election system. Top two systems provide that every candidate runs in the primary and every voter gets the same primary ballot, and then only the two people who come in first and second are permitted to run in November. We've had 18 Supreme Court decisions on ballot access, and they've been consistent. Access to the general election ballot is protected. States cannot require candidates seeking a place on the general election ballot to show support for more than 5% of the voters. Now, what does Top 2 do? In effect, it says you have to show 30% support to run in the general election. This country is one of the worst in the world among countries that have free elections when it comes to the variable of the freedom of the voter to vote for the candidate he or she wishes. People who organize minor parties and participate in them generally have important issues that they want to talk about, not on what the problem is, but what are some solutions. And it is idiotic in this country to stifle those voices. We need new ideas. And when the Supreme Court allows states to wipe out minor party and independent candidacies, they are putting a huge footprint on the First Amendment. First, I'd like to thank Richard. I mean, this guy is a walking encyclopedia.
I present to you the newest inductee into the Hall of Liberty, Richard Winger.
You're really applauding for yourselves, because there is no organization in the history of this country that's fought back harder for freedom of the voter to vote for who he or she wishes to vote than the Libertarian Party. And second is the ACLU. Now, why is the Libertarian Party on the top of the list? I was reviewing the history. We are a party that we could characterize ourselves as half free and half slave. That's very over the top. But what do I mean by that? In half our states, we are safely on the ballot, generally speaking, as long as we are careful to run candidates for the right offices. Generally, in half the states, we do not have a ballot access problem. We have worries, but we're okay. But in the other 25 states, it's idiotic. We're the third biggest party in the country, indisputably, and yet in the other 25 states, it's insane to force us to go out in the street and collect tens of thousands of signatures. It's meaningless. But what we have done is, over the years, this party has persuaded the legislatures of 20 states to ease the ballot access laws so that we can expect to be freed of the burden. And it's you and the people at home and the people in the past of our party who have done this wonderful work. And we've had to do it all without any help from the courts. The federal courts, with only one recent exception, have never struck down the law and how a party stays on the ballot. So for us to have improved the law at that point in 20 states, we had to do it the hard way. We had to persuade state legislators to do it. And I'm afraid the party isn't even conscious of what it's done. Because we've had wonderful activists in state after state that believe that this could be done. And if you don't believe it can be done, you won't try. So you cannot despise all Republican and Democratic state legislators. That will never work. They're human beings. You have to approach them as human beings, speak out for what's right, what's logical, what saves taxpayers' dollars. And we can do it. We've done it in 20 states. So if your party is not automatically on the ballot in your state, this is a project to work on. And we're doing it right now across the country, and I know many of you know all about it. Some of you are working very hard. So just keep it up, intensify it. And thank you so much.